Hi, welcome to Movies Moment. Today we are going to explain a movie called The Requiem. Spoilers ahead. Subscribe if you like this and catch us on the next one. Take care.
We start by meeting Jay and her husband, Kyle. After losing a baby, they decide to spend some time at a beautiful overwater resort in Vietnam, hoping to heal from the traumatic experience. However, Jay continues to have frequent episodes whenever she remembers the incident, making it difficult for her to sleep at night. But this doesn't stop them from enjoying their time in Vietnam, visiting various tourist attractions and learning about the history of the place. While resting at a seaside cafe, Jay receives a call from her mother and sister, while Kyle plays soccer with the staff. Her mother and sister try to find out if she is safe and well, ensuring she is working through what happened to her. When the phone call ends, Jay sees the weather forecast segment on TV, realizing a storm is approaching. The two return to their room in the floating villa, and Kyle is more than excited to jump into the water to swim. Meanwhile, Jay is busy trying to get a decent cell phone signal, but it seems to not be working, even commenting to Kyle that the SIM card he bought for the trip is useless. Trying to take his wife's mind off her worries, Kyle encourages Jay not to stress about anything and just enjoy the vacation. He also reminds her that the purpose of the trip was to get away from the world for a while. Convinced, Jay jumps into the water, and the two enjoy a beautiful romantic moment. They dive and see the beauty of the sea, the diverse species and marine plants, something wonderful to behold. After diving, they relax for a bit, taking shelter in a nearby rock formation when suddenly Kyle slips and cuts his foot. Seeing the blood in the water makes Jay remember her miscarriage, and she suddenly has another tense and sad moment. Kyle tries to calm her down, but they end up arguing about what happened when he says the baby would have died anyway. That night, Jay tells Kyle she can't stay there any longer, feeling overwhelmed by her unpredictable episodes. Fortunately, Kyle understands, telling her they can leave the next day. They chat a bit before going to sleep to make the night as pleasant as possible. Later, while they are asleep, a storm forms and soon starts to intensify as time goes on. Then, a sudden noise wakes Jay, but Kyle minimizes it, saying the storm will pass. Next, they receive a call from the resort staff informing them that they can move inland if they are concerned about the storm, but after thinking for a bit, they tell the staff they will stay where they are. Unfortunately, this decision turns out badly for them as minutes later, the storm intensifies in the area. The water level rises and floods their room, breaking the glass doors before being swept away by the wild currents. The two are thrown around the room, and the bed slides over Kyle, breaking his leg. Jay tries to help him, but he tells her to call for help. Unfortunately, the phone is already useless. The room is hit by a stronger wave, further uprooting it from the bridge connecting it to the mainland. Then, a sudden force throws Jay up, causing her to lose consciousness for a few seconds after hitting her head. Kyle goes to check on Jay and, fortunately, she is fine, although their room is now being carried away by the seawater far from land. They debate whether to swim to safety before it's too late. Looking back toward the land, they try to shout and wave for help, but the storm is too strong, and they are already too far away. At the same time, most people on the mainland are also running for cover, too distracted to notice them. Feeling hopeless, they decide to try to swim, but before Jay can get into the water, she slips when hitting a large rock. Kyle tries to pull her back into the room, but it's becoming too slippery. Then, he sees another rock approaching and aware that it will hit Jay, he pushes her into the water and uses the ocean current to carry her to the other side. Jay saves herself from the impact with the rock, then swims back to the room, but unfortunately finds Kyle even more injured and immediately looks away from the blood to avoid another memory returning. Now that they are starting to drift away, Kyle tells Jay it is too late to do anything and they should just wait for the resort staff to rescue them. However, Jay is determined to get out of the room, even offering to swim back to the rocks alone to signal for help. Still, Kyle insists they should stay where they are because it's too dangerous. With no other choice, Jay tends to Kyle's injuries before they cuddle up for the night, hoping for a better tomorrow. However, when they wake up, they are even more lost at sea, with only the basic foundations of the room intact. Looking around, Jay sees nothing but horizon. Jay starts to become hysterical, getting angry because Kyle didn't listen to her idea to signal for help on the rocks for someone to see them. But despite this, Kyle still insists they would have died if they had stayed in the midst of the raging storm. As they are still drifting, they plan to try to survive as long as they can since they no longer have the option to swim to land. Jay swims around the room searching for useful items that may be stuck under the floorboards, like drinking water in their bags, but a school of fish suddenly scares her, forcing her to come back up. While trying to recover, blood from Kyle drips from his wound into the water. Then, when the sun rises, the water bottle propped against the side of the room reflects the sun's rays, accidentally burning Kyle's thigh. The couple talks a bit and then lies down. Later, close to the end of the afternoon, Jay sees an aircraft in the distance and starts screaming for help, but that's not the most effective strategy. Remembering what happened with the water bottle, they try to make a smoke signal by lighting a fire using the bottle to ignite some dry wooden sticks, but it's too late as the sun is already setting. This situation makes the couple even more anxious, and Jay desperately fears the worst could happen if they are not rescued. The next day, they start to get dehydrated, and Kyle's condition worsens. Fortunately, Jay sees a yacht in the distance, and with the sun back in the sky, Kyle manages to light a fire. As the yacht slowly drifts away and doesn't notice them, Jay insists on increasing the fire so they can be seen. However, this backfires on them as they accidentally set the entire room on fire, depriving them of the one thing that kept them sheltered and above water. They then dive into the water and watch the room burn slowly, and once again, Kyle's blood mixes with the seawater. They decide to hold on to pieces of wood when suddenly they see a finned animal circling around them. To calm his panicking wife, Kyle checks and seemingly sees a shark. Jay spots a larger piece of wood they can use, so they desperately paddle until they manage to climb onto the plank while the sharks try to reach them. Jay desperately pulls Kyle onto the board until the animals attracted by the couple's movement catch up to them, but it turns out to be just a group of dolphins, which calms the couple down. After the scare passes, the two lie on the board, talking and trying to stay as calm as possible. As they doze off on the board, real sharks begin to hunt them, tearing it apart. Then, a sleeping Kyle falls into the shark-infested water, and Jay desperately tries to save her husband, but all she sees is his blood. She returns to the board and stays safe. Fortunately, Kyle manages to come back to the surface, but he has no strength to climb back onto the board, so he only tells Jay to start paddling away. Due to dehydration and exhaustion, Jay faints. She wakes up in the middle of the night, managing to find land. Joyfully, she stands up, trying to wake Kyle while standing on the beach. Unfortunately, Jay realizes Kyle is already dead and sees that his two legs have been eaten by sharks, which is why he couldn't climb back onto the board. Even so, Jay tries to force Kyle to wake up, but she knows it's useless. She mourns for Kyle, holding his body until she finally lets it go into the sea. She then begins to dream that Kyle is still alive, with his legs intact as he tells her he will always be with her. However, when she regains consciousness, she sees the rest of Kyle's body being devoured by sharks. Jay discovers she is still in shallow water, and before exiting to solid ground, she is injured by the reefs. Because of her blood, the sharks are attracted back to her, and one manages to bite her leg. Then, as she tries to run to a safe place, she picks up a rock and smashes the little shark's head, killing it. Jay reaches the sandy beach and painfully treats her injuries, and then while trying to walk, she faints again. When she wakes up, she continues walking inland, and after crossing an apparently endless beach, she sees a small cliff. Jay also finds a small boat occupied by a sleeping fisherman, so she immediately swims to him and boards the boat. She picks up a jar of clear liquid, thinking it's water, but discovers it's alcohol. Jay wakes the fisherman and shows him her injured leg while trying to plead for help, wanting to be taken back to land. However, the language barrier makes communication difficult. Instead of rowing back first, the fisherman offers to help Jay with her wound, and she accepts. The fisherman turns a hook into a needle and grabs a thread before disinfecting Jay's wound with alcohol, then drinking a bit himself. He instructs her to breathe as he starts sewing up her injury. After the procedure, he encourages her to lie down and rest a bit. The fisherman dives into the sea and checks his trap, looking to see if he caught any fish. But unbeknownst to him, a larger fish is lurking behind him. When the small boat rocks, Jay immediately tries to look for the fisherman, only to see blood in his severed hand. She tries to release the anchor from the small boat, but it's too hard for her. Suddenly, the fisherman comes up from underneath the water and screams for help, although when Jay tries to help him, he accidentally pulls her into the water. The fisherman tries to hold onto her for support as she swims back to the mini boat, and when she tries to help him again, the shark reaches him ferociously and kills him for good. Jay tries to lift the anchor again and succeeds but is still not safe from the hungry shark. She grabs the portable outboard motor from the mini boat and restarts it, using the blades to cut at the shark as it tries to attack her. However, the shark is not killed, it pulls back for a moment, but it doesn't take long for it to return with ferocity to attack Jay again. Unfortunately, when she tries to use the motor for the second time, it runs out of gas. Then, out of nowhere, the enormous shark jumps out of the water and flips the mini boat. Jay quickly tries to grab the anchor back while seeing the shark swimming toward her, and as she panics, she manages to hit the shark in the mouth with the anchor and kill it. Once it disappears, Jay climbs onto the now overturned mini boat. Fortunately, she was near civilization, and not far from the beach. She is spotted by some people and then feels relieved as she is finally safe.